I was recently in Tokyo, Japan, and now I'm in Istanbul, Turkey. And in my head, when I go to Tokyo, if I land, let's say at midnight, I go to my hotel, it's 1 a.m., all I want to do is walk around the city because I know that nothing's going to happen. Obviously, Japan is having some controversies recently because they're wanting to bring a lot of people from Nigeria, from India, from Pakistan, so we'll see how the future goes. But right now, if you walk around Tokyo, nothing is going to happen to you. Nobody's going to stab you like in the United States. We're seeing just horrific things happen. There's not going to be a mass shooting, anything like that. And now comparing that experience to how I feel here in Istanbul, Turkey, where there's security everywhere. If you go to your hotel, I'm staying at the Ritz-Carlton, they check you for basically everything. You have to go to this metal scanner multiple times, and this huge level of security obviously shows you how dangerous it is at an attack level because of what happened at the airport. I'm trying to be careful what words I use here on my channel, but it shows the difference from being in Istanbul, Turkey. I'm not gonna go and walk around at 1 a.m. Versus in Tokyo, I can do it anytime. And safety is something that is not talked about that much. We optimize for taxes, we optimize for citizenship, we optimize for hiring people around the world, we optimize for crypto cashing out, but we don't optimize for where are we not going to die? Where are we not going to get run over? Because the death rate to pedestrians from cars is massive. So I'm going to talk about the safest countries in the world for you as a high net worth individual. And some countries, for example, the United Arab Emirates and Singapore, UAE and Singapore, they're extremely safe. And you also have a cohesive society where even though it's very diverse, it's extremely safe. Nobody's gonna stab you. You can walk around at 3 a.m. I used to walk around Dubai Marina all the time, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., doesn't matter. I would go party at 4 a.m., I would come back home, and there's no problem because the UAE and Singapore stand out as countries that attract tons of millionaires. Singapore, I would say, is more for ultra high net worth individuals. It's really hard to get residency. You can do banking in Singapore. I have banking in Singapore. I recommend it. And you can also do banking in UAE, but UAE is more accessible. You buy a property, 550,000 US dollars, you get a golden visa. You can get nominated for a golden visa, and you can go and get a 10-year permit versus in Singapore to get a residency permit, to get permanent residency and citizenship is extremely difficult for the average millionaire. So those two obviously stand out. And other Gulf countries, although now with Qatar, we saw what happened with Israel. We don't know what's going to develop. Saudi has already said that they will act more hostile towards Israel. We don't know what will happen, but these Gulf states at the human-to-human level, at the day-by-day basis, crime level, they're extremely safe. And obviously Singapore as well, extremely safe. And overall, a lot of these Asian cultures, I went to China, I went to Shanghai, didn't feel unsafe at any point. I went to Seoul, South Korea, didn't feel unsafe. Many places in Asia are extremely safe. Obviously, Japan has the high taxes and strict regulations, and you need to be careful with Japan because if you move to Japan, it's going to be very isolating. A lot of Westerners say that it's a very hard lifestyle, that the taxes are extremely high, that the regulations are tough. So obviously there's this downside. So you're not just going to move to Japan, you have the language and so on. Now, other smaller traditional tax haven countries like Monaco, extremely safe. Cayman Islands, extremely safe and developed. These are countries where ultra high net worth individuals go to. They go and buy a property in Cayman Islands for $2 million. They go and buy a property in Monaco for a few million euros, and they get their residency and done deal. These countries, if you're going to use them for taxes, make sure you're actually spending the required amount of time. Because, for example, in Italy and France, although France, if you're a French citizen, you can't move to Monaco. But if you're a Spanish citizen, if you're an Italian, if you're an Austrian, and you claim that you live in Monaco and you have Monaco tax residency, the authorities will actually check. And it's not as easy as just going by car or going by taxi to Monaco. So you truly have to live in these territories or country, Monaco, Cayman Islands territory. You truly have to live there, and it might be very small for you. It might be very boring, but if you do commit to these countries or territories like Cayman Islands, you can have a developed lifestyle, you can have extremely safe lifestyle, the lowest tax possible, which is zero, and the good networking community as well. The same thing you would have in UAE. I would say the networking in UAE is much better than in Singapore because you have a lot of Singaporeans that are really Chinese descendants that are extremely wealthy, and it's probably going to be hard to do networking with them because there's a lot of old money, versus in UAE, it's a lot of new money, crypto, online businesses. The next one, there are some countries in Latin America that are safer than others. For example, some people on YouTube or on Twitter or different platforms, they say, look, go and max out your lifestyle and move to Rio de Janeiro because you have the weather, it's cheap, amazing properties, easy to get residency, great for dating. Sure, but Rio de Janeiro and other cities in Brazil are extremely dangerous. Let's say you come from a very safe place in the West and you move to Brazil, you might have issues because you don't have your brain adapted to danger. So you have to be very careful. There are some exceptions. El Salvador, extremely safe. They didn't have a single murder in 1,000 days, 3 years without a murder, and they've cleaned it up extremely well. I would say it's like a Singapore model where they crack down on crime, and now it's an extremely safe society. Low taxes or zero taxes, great for Bitcoin. So if you want to actually move there, it's not that developed as other places. In my opinion, there are better places to live. I would much rather live somewhere in Eastern Europe than live in El Salvador, but it works for a lot of people. And other places where, in my opinion, you should be careful. I've heard really bad stories from Costa Rica, from Panama. In Costa Rica, for example, in the area where I was staying, the couple days that I was there, near me, there was a home invasion and a shooting, and a Canadian man died. And obviously, you don't want to buy a huge villa, live a very luxurious lifestyle, so somebody invades your house and kills you. So I've heard really bad stories from Costa Rica and Panama. You do have to be careful in Central America as well as South America. Paraguay, for example, is safer than other places like Colombia. It's safer than Peru. Now Chile is getting more and more dangerous, but they're not extremely safe. If you want extreme safety or high levels of safety, then South America might be a tricky choice, apart from, for example, Uruguay. And I saw a video recently here on YouTube in Colombia where a Westerner or an American got scopolamine, very easily scopolamine, because he went to a bar and somebody slipped it in his drink. It wasn't that he pulled a girl home. It wasn't that he was at a house party, nothing like that. He was at a bar. Somebody slipped scopolamine and then stole all of their stuff. And these countries, you have to be aware of the danger. I don't want you to go in with $5-10 million to one of these places. Somebody empties out your $1 million wallet, Bitcoin wallet or USDT wallet, so you have to be extremely careful. The other region that I would say is Eastern Europe. This is my favorite region of the world. Countries from the north to south would be Poland, Slovakia to an extent, Hungary, Serbia, all these beautiful countries. I'm a citizen of Serbia. I absolutely love Serbia and Belgrade and Serbia in general, although if you check the crime stats online, because there is some corruption in Serbia, it will show higher than it actually is. But the day-by-day crime, extremely low. You can walk around late at night. Sure, there is some homeless here and there. Somebody might yell at you. The same thing in Poland. If you go to the smaller cities, some drunk guy is gonna yell at you. That's not real danger. We're talking about stabbing. We're talking about a gun to my face danger. We're talking about somebody stealing my car, like what's happening in Canada. That's probably not going to happen in all these countries in Eastern Europe. Obviously, most of these are part of the European Union. So if you want to stay outside of the European Union, you have Serbia, you have Montenegro, and you have these beautiful countries that you can enjoy. Great lifestyle, developing very well into the future, possibility of getting citizenship or permanent residency, and also extremely safe. The next handful of countries for people that also want to optimize their taxes in Europe, although Eastern Europe has relatively low taxes. Maybe you don't like the climate, you don't like the weather because winter is pretty rough, specifically in the northern parts of Eastern Europe or in the east of the European Union. You can also go to Portugal, Greece, and Malta. I want to be careful with these countries because there are some very shady areas. In Portugal, I've been to Malta. There were some places that I thought, oof, this looks rough. In Greece, a lot of places look very rough. Some cities in Portugal, the crime is increasing. But in general, most areas are going to be safer than in the United States. You're not going to have random stabbings. You're not going to have random shootings. Nothing is probably going to happen to you as long as you stick to the good areas. And you can also optimize your taxes. Portugal has the golden visa. Greece has the lump sum tax. Malta has relatively low taxes. And as long as you stick to the right areas, you will be completely fine. And obviously you have other European non-EU countries like Switzerland, Liechtenstein, which are traditionally very safe, and the cities itself, you really don't have that much to worry about, although they are getting a little bit more dangerous over time. And then another controversial one here, because what's happening around the world, and a lot of people might think that this is a terrible idea. I'm actually flying there today, and that's Belarus. Belarus is a country that obviously has a lot of sanctions, obviously has a lot of problems, obviously has the threat of war and so on, but on a day-by-day basis is extremely safe. So there are some countries that have sanctions, have the threat of war, are isolated by the West, but on a day-by-day basis, if you actually go there and spend time there and visit, it's as safe as Japan, I would say. So don't just follow the media. A lot of people that follow the media think that Serbia is a terrible place, that think that these countries that we talk about here are terrible places because they just see the mainstream media. Don't follow the mainstream media. Actually check on YouTube or on independent sources on the reality. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If I missed any country or any country that you think is extremely safe for millionaires, comment it down. I want to see a good discussion. If you want to see what countries my wealthiest clients are choosing, my multi-millionaire clients are choosing for their freedom, family, and future, you can check out this video right here on the countries the wealthiest people in the world are choosing for their business, investments, citizenships. Check them out right here.